احنا دلوقتي معانا لقاء مع وزير تغير المناخ لدولة الفلبين. هنسأله عن وجوده هنا في البري كوب وجهود دولة الفلبين علشان محاربة تغير المناخ. Welcome sir to our program Zoom Africa.
Thank you very much for inviting me. The Philippines is happy to join you.
Thank you so much. If we start to talking about the Philippine roles here in the pre COP.
The Philippines' role here is significant. What we want to do is to amplify and articulate the important principle of climate justice, and that we all need at this point to agree on this principle and use this as a basis for our urgent action, so that we can unlock the many things that need to be done for the entire world community to address climate change and its impacts.
Okay, as Your Excellency, it's Minister of Climate Change. What's your opinion how to fight against the climate change all over the world?
Climate change is a systemic problem, and it's something that cannot be addressed by one country alone. And it is in this regard that we value the COP and the space that it does give, so that nations can come together and decide the steps that are needed to be done. There are different positions, but giving the space and acting urgently and agreeing on matters will be important for us to address. And that can be done, of course, by adaptation and mitigation. Adaptation for countries like the Philippines is very important because we are least responsible for climate change, but we are suffering the most from its impacts. Just before I arrived here, we had 2 super typhoons in the Philippines, and the loss and damage is immense. But we see it all over the world. In Pakistan, it's even worse. So what we need to do is to work together and make our international community accountable and release what's important for us, climate finance, so that we can adapt quickly and we can work very quickly to address the impacts of climate change.
So what's the preparation for the Philippines to go to the COP, the big event in Sharm el-Sheikh?
Sharm el-Sheikh is important for us, and we're working very closely with the Embassy of Egypt in the Philippines. Also, we are working very closely with our like-minded partners. Of course, we work with ASEAN, and we also work with our development partners. It's important to talk, and it's important to come up with a strategy to highlight which priorities are important. And it's good that in this meeting, in the pre-COP, Egypt identified already some important points that are important. And you know, Egypt and the Philippines, we are both members of G77 and China, and we have similar circumstances and similar positions. And we want to work very closely with Egypt, fellow developing countries, and importantly, least developed countries, so that their needs, our needs, are addressed by the entire world based on the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement.
From Glasgow, the last COP, to Egypt, do you see any procedures on the ground? Now it's almost 1 year.
It's almost 1 year. There have been advancements in terms of mitigation and adaptation. But we always ask, is it enough? It is never enough, because we're running against a very, very short timeline. 2030 is just around the corner. 2050 is actually very near as well. So what we need to do is to accelerate, build on the gains from Glasgow towards Sharm el-Sheikh, build on it very quickly, increase our velocity, and have the political commitment to do what we need to do in terms of climate finance, in terms of loss and damage finance, and of course on adaptation and mitigation.
Okay, last question. Do you see Africa it's the solution for the climate changing?
I would like to believe that the solution is in Africa and in all of us. We have to look at ourselves at what we can do, but the principle of climate justice is important because we also have to hold accountable those
Yeah.
who are most responsible for climate change, and that they should be able to help us who are suffering
Yes.
rise from the occasion and transform in order that our world can be better. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it's human dignity that matters.
Yes, exactly.
It is lives and livelihood that matter, and
Yeah.
we all have a stake in it. So Africa is part of the solution, Egypt is part of the solution,
Yes.
DRC is part of the solution, and the Philippines is part of the solution. We're all part of it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Your Excellency, to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.